Hello YouTube, we're gonna be watching Femboys Are the Worst by the royalties here. I personally don't agree with it. I think Femboys are good. They're not worse. Let's see.
So if you don't remember, you probably don't, I assume most of you have a memory of a goldfish. About a year ago now I made a video about femboys that may have indirectly, unfortunately, affected my reputation. Many to this day think I'm a part of said group. No, like all my other videos and like your average nature documentary, I just like to watch, observe, and educate. I am very much confident in my current character stats and build, thank you, and I am in no way a philosopher in this subject.
Femboyishness.
Think I've exonerated myself there on those phallic claims against me. Anyway, that previous video was basically a very brief overview of femboys, and an answer to an ever-mounting question that has plagued us in current times, and probably the past decade. Is it gay to like a femboy?
Yes.
But one, YouTube really didn't like that video, apparently due to some of the contents of it, probably the first 10 seconds I'm gonna be honest. I personally think it was the thumbnail, which was gender morphed pyrocynical, which is probably an accurate depiction of him nowadays anyway, and two, the pyrocynical subreddit didn't really like the use of gender bent pyrocynical, along with the discussion and attitude towards femboys in said video, which I don't think they watched fully, because I think I was fairly kind and understanding towards the subject. But most pyro fans are femboys anyway, let's be honest. But looking back at that video, it is somewhat outdated, and it was a bit broad regarding the topic. And yes, I know, it's hard to identify what my usual content is. I mean, if you look at my YouTube page, we go from serious topics to videos like this. No, I'm not bipolar in any way. I'm just interested in a very range of topics, I guess. Or maybe I'm making this video because I've unfortunately found out that a good percentage of you are femboys. The YouTube statistics do not lie. I don't know how I've achieved this, maybe I've been preaching too much to the estrogen-filled War Thunder community, but yeah, here we are, and today we are jumping back into the expanded, excavated mineshaft that is the crevice of the femboy community. So clear your schedule, lower your testosterone, and jump back into the closet, because first, what is a femboy?
Any of you femboys want to play with my tits?
So the online definition of a femboy refers to a male, usually cisgender, who expresses themselves with traditional feminine behaviours. So basically the guy that plays the support role, or any female avatar in any game, with the ultimate
I feel targeted here.
copium excuse, that is, they just want to support the team and look at a female model over a male. Sure, buddy, we all believe you. The blue-striped thigh-highs with a cat.
I don't wear those though.
Toe beans, the wax strips, and the medieval chastity belt
that should fucking suffocate my thighs.
All in your Amazon wish list are only there to obviously enhance your gaming experience, especially the pink Razer cat-eared headphones, which heighten your reflexes in game. But femboys can often be mistaken with other groups and aesthetics. Like twinks, for example, who are slim, gay, or bisexual men with relatively no hair, and whose only worry is the impending doom that is twink death. But compared to twinks, being a femboy doesn't automatically mean you're gay, and that you reside in the borders of Poland, contrary to popular belief. But they also get confused with the trans community. Although some femboys are trans, being a femboy is more of an aesthetic thing more than a gender identity. But femboys have been around for some time. Apparently all the way back to ancient Greece and Rome, where flesh sword fighting was happening on the daily, and it was somewhat normal, but they weren't labelled femboys, more just feminine men, and any activities with femboys weren't seen as gay, it was more labelled as male bonding. In fact, the only person seen as gay was the one that was getting the extended prostate exam. And no, you cannot use that excuse in the modern era. But for the love of God, I don't want to talk about the Emperor Nero story. That is just straight up nightmare fuel. But I would say quite recently, around the 2000s, they started to get popular again, probably due to things like the progression of the internet, and yes, due to things like trends where femboys were comparing their schlongs to monster cans. And some took it a step further and put it in their extended inventory slot, which if you want a body temperature white monster, go ahead I guess. Aren't you glad you learned that was a trend? And even further through the 2000s with the introduction of things like Discord, YouTube, TikTok, and more significantly anime, more people were coming across femboys.
And more people are getting attracted to them.
Either questioning their sexuality or wondering if it's a good financial decision to buy a full Astolfo cosplay. In fact, probably due to the COVID pandemic in 2020, it only accelerated the growth of this aesthetic and community at the time.
Because they were isolated and they have nothing else to do. Okay, let's be a femboy now in the internet. Might as well make money.
Because people being inside most days with their only access to the outside world being the internet, which you do anyway, it resulted in a lot of people discovering themselves or things about them they never knew. Especially with things like hobbies, like art, crocheting, streaming maybe, and the odd Minecraft phase. Or maybe you decide to start programming in C+, and like most C++ programmers, you take a long look at yourself in the mirror and discover maybe...
I'm glad I didn't become a programmer. I'm glad I stopped being a fucking programmer. I stopped and just went to art school. Dowley is worse. Going to art school is kind of worse.
You're not as masculine as you thought you were, and maybe you've developed an abhorrent addiction to Dead by Daylight and Fallout New Vegas.
Hey, I can almost see right down the barrel.
To the point where you see yourself in a new light, a feminine light. I think a good example is Finster, who all the way back during COVID used to lean into the joke that they were a femboy with their Twitch chat, and it's no longer a joke anymore. They actually ended up discovering something about themselves. On top of the fact, it makes a lot of fucking money. Femboys are well associated with things like thigh highs, monster consuming, most things feminine, and skirts. Yes, like that one person that ruined an entire look during the 1940s. You cannot wear skirts if you identify as predominantly male. Unless you're Scottish, but then again, nobody really cares. Most people are more concerned with the fact one of your neighbours loves to touch livestock. But against popular belief, most femboys can actually be found more online than in the biomes of the public outdoors. So yeah, finding an IRL femboy is somewhat of a rarity,
it's pretty
as
rare.
most like to keep their hobby a secret due to somewhat of a negative stigma developed as a...
because they're probably... Major femboys are... Okay, the question is... probably straight and just want to be like... feminine and scared to be called gay. Or they're gay and they don't want to be called gay because like they think they're still straight.
Result of the popularity of femboys, which we will talk about later. But most femboys don't actually express such hobbies in public, more just do it in the comfort of their own home.
Yeah, true.
Like another group of people that get a harsh reputation. But you're surprised there are many subclasses of femboys. You've got the gothic femboys, that for some reason, more than other types of femboys, are always quite armed with either semi-automatic weapons or just some level of arsenal. You've got the Hello Kitty or Sanrio femboys, which are on the same level as their female counterpart. Fun fact, did you actually know Hello Kitty is canonically British? Another hobby we've managed to colonize. You cannot escape us. You've got the tomboy femboys, which seems like some sort of oxymoron. You want to look feminine but in a masculine way. You've got femboys more on the entertainment side of the spectrum, with things like femboy VTubers, which never cease to surprise me.
Ultra Kill is the shooter game with built-in butt. So, hey Google, remind me to buy Ultra Kill after the stream in like 4 hours.
I know what kind of man you are.
And you have additional subgenres of femboys, but don't worry, all of them are equally as racist, all of them have different spawn rates, and for some reason most of them are gun and history fanatics, and play Dead by Daylight and Hearts of Iron.
And
we now know what a femboy is, somewhat their history behind it, and the genres of it. But what are the problems that such a community faces?
Ooh, you like boys. You're a boy kisser.
My God, young man.
Now, the femboy community does face a lot of problems. Yes, you can't just download a Linux distro, wear knee-high socks, and play War Thunder or VR Chat in peace, because there is quite a heavy burden that comes with being a femboy. One of the main ones is the stereotype of it, and the somewhat negative stigma that surrounds it. Over the years, especially recently, being a femboy has become more sexualized and advertised as a fetish, more than anything. It's become characterized as this blatantly NSFW thing, and anyone that partakes in it must be somewhat gay, when in reality, it's just an aesthetic. It has nothing to do with your sexuality, personality, or anything else. It's just simply how you appear. But unfortunately, due to the popularity of femboys in recent years certainly blowing up, and the majority of the attention goes towards people that present themselves as femboys, who are active on platforms like TikTok, YouTube, and God forbid Twitter, and post suggestive content which indirectly assists with the stereotype, and not to mention memes that represent femboys as attention-starved Viagra overdosing fiends.
Hi, my name is
I
Reggie.
don't know why.
I like guys. I really like guys. There's just something about them. I like their touch, their smell.
Why? Why do they portray femboys as gay? I don't know why.
Also doesn't help with the reputation of femboys, and leads to once again the topic being over-sexualized, and rather a poor reputation for those that are in the community. But we all have to remember another slogan of this channel. No, not the one you're thinking of. The loudest part of a community doesn't represent the whole community, or the average femboy, because most femboys you don't even know are femboys. Most are very private about this topic and hobby, possibly meaning somebody you know could be a femboy. It is not me before you finish that comment, you f***ing degenerate.
It might be
and a majority of femboys don't actually act like the majority of what you see online. But of course we have to exclude any Discord using femboys, most of them are fiends. But you probably won't see the non-sexual side of this community, at least on most platforms. But keep in mind, not all femboys are as they are advertised, and if you approach one, contrary to popular belief and Reddit, they are not going to immediately spread their prostate and ask you to deposit your lineage in there, because as previously educated, not all femboys are gay, and two, they're not all down bad to the point where they would lower themselves to someone like you. They will probably either immediately block you, or if this is in public, stare at you like a used condom they found in the gutter on the side of the road. But due to the stereotype and the online perception of femboys, it has led to many in the femboy community receiving harassment or unprompted sexual advances almost at default due to the stereotype. You want the experience of being a female on any dating app? Try being a femboy. You'll probably see so much circumcised meat you'd have thought you'd have walked into a butcher's shop. But it gets much worse when you think that some of these femboys are receiving these types of messages, and said femboys are underage. Yeah, it's not unheard of in the community. Some femboys are minors, which with a combination of the stereotype.
They look young. They probably are. If they look young, they probably are. If this typical femboy, they might be over 20. Yeah. If they don't look like that, they probably are underage. If they do, they're probably estrogen or they're probably Asian. So, yeah. If they're white, they're probably underage. If they look underage. If they're Asian, they're probably just Asian and look like that.
Type is a horrifying thought. Another type of harassment femboys received is a title that used to be acceptable and now it isn't
What
so
is it?
much. And
Traps?
that title is Trap.
Why?
Which back in my day was mainly used to describe anime characters that looked like girls but they weren't, so it was called a trap. Femboys would often get associated with this title because they were not expecting a 12-gauge shotgun with an extended barrel to be under their skirt. But in recent years, it actually developed into somewhat of a slur, no longer just referring to fictional characters, but now is a slur for people mainly in the transgender community and sometimes femboys. But to be honest, I haven't heard the word trap in a while, except when it is actually directed towards an anime character. Another problem the community faces is gatekeeping, as you obviously only can be considered an official femboy if you're conventionally attractive, constantly on a calorie deficit of 1,500, your total body fat is around 5%, and you have to have default feminine features given to you at...
So, you cannot eat. You need to be fucking skin and bones to be a femboy.
Spawn. If not, you are not considered a femboy, and you probably got told to give up on all your hopes and dreams of being a feminine dude. I think with this problem and most others I've mentioned, people have this idea for a femboy, especially on the internet, that you have to act a certain way, often being NSFW,
No,
and you have to fit these like physical guidelines to be considered a femboy. But being a femboy is just presenting yourself in somewhat more of a feminine way, not a gender identity, a sexuality, or something that has any strict guidelines. Just boys being feminine boys.
Woo woo.
Conclusion?
You're so warm. I couldn't help but notice your bulgy from across the floor.
God, stop that.
So in conclusion, I think the perceived definition and appearance of femboys has somewhat skewed over the years in somewhat of a negative light, when it's simply just an aesthetic thing. It doesn't mean anything else. And by definition, it is not gay to be a femboy, but liking them is a whole different ballpark.
It is gay.
If you're talking about
It's
liking
like
pixels on a screen,
It's not gay to be them.
I'd just call you a loser. If you're talking about an actual
Unless
person,
you're gay.
either gynosexual or whatever it's called, or if it's anything else, sorry to break it to you, buddy, nobody fucking cares. It's the modern age. People are more concerned currently about Nintendo bending us over a desk and entering our anus financially than most things are caring at this current time. But yeah, bit of a quick video for you, and a bit of a change from what I usually do. But that's all I wanted to say, and bye-bye.
Great ass video. Everything is true. If you're a femboy, you are not gay unless you are. If you like femboys, you are gay. You literally like feminine men. You are gay. You want to stick your dick in them. You are gay. But that's it for today. Like and subscribe to Royalty is Here, or me if you like this video, and that's it. Bye bye.